Kubor ka Batisi TV. Lawan Rashapi da ka Orange Nissan Lumso po near Fabricate Shillong, ringkat bat ka Victorium, ka Dukan Kitiar Kilan Met, ka Babhatam Hakador ka Babit, Hanong Tumai Old Beat House Shillong.
Mr. Speaker, sir, reply to Star Question 76A. Sir, the total number of tourists who have visited in Meghalaya since Facilitation Center was set up are as under. 1. December 2020, 5,551. January 2021, 9,558. February 2021, 9,664. March till 4th of March 2021, 1,350. Total 26,123. Reply to 76B, yes sir. C, sir, the stakeholders have informed loss of revenue. D, no sir, however, other relief measures are being provided.
Yes.
Honorable Chief Minister, may I know, it is a fact that the visiting tourists who has reported in the Facilitation Center that their stay in the state is less than 48 hours have been turned away from the Facilitation Center?
Sir, as a cabinet, we had decided that during COVID time, we need to be extra careful. Therefore, based on the COVID situation, it was felt that if the tourists are coming in, then they should not be one-day trip tourists, one-day tourist. That does not mean that we don't want people to come, but it was a decision by the cabinet that we need to ensure that we don't have too much of traffic coming in of this day trip tourists because of the COVID situation, nothing else. So therefore, based on that, we decided that if tourists are coming in and if you're going to open up tourism now, let it be the serious tourists who want to stay and who will add revenue to the state and who will give money to the stakeholders. So that's why we take a decision that people should come in and stay for at least 48 hours. Then we realized that we need to relax it a bit because as the situation improved, so then we reduced that to 24 hours. So as of now, we are sticking to the 24-hour because we would want it to be at least tourists who would come in and spend some money and the stakeholders, whether it's the hotels or whether it's the different homestays, then they can also start earning. So that's why with that kind of a strategy, though of course it is a bit of a situation where it's some people have faced inconvenience, but that is not our purpose. But the idea was really to keep our people safe, yet at the same time ensure that serious tourists were coming in, and third, to ensure that some revenue was earned by our stakeholders.
So, looking at the overall decline in tourist entry as compared to last year, and then may I know from the Honorable Chief Minister the steps taken by the government to improve this flow?
Sir, of course, we have seen a large drop in the number of tourists, and it is because of the lockdowns that took place, because of the restrictions that we had for COVID. And of course, last year was a very, very difficult year for all of us. And the tourism sector was one of the first to be hit and one of the last to recover also. So therefore, it's a very difficult situation for our stakeholders in the tourism sector. So there is no doubt that it's challenging. So there is no, I should say, one reply to what the honourable member has asked. It's a process. So therefore, apart from the fact that a strong, aggressive marketing and information was passed on to the tourist, the fact that we are starting and pushing the flights from different metros, the fact that we are now creating, for example, we have just started the process of creating very, very high resolution and good quality videos for the different tourism locations that we have, so that then we can start marketing it. We have started investing a lot in the infrastructure. We have started training different people through different government schemes. We use this time where we could train our stakeholders from different homestays. So these trainings are taking place. So there are multiple factors that are going on. We have worked in this last 1 year to clear the externally aided project from NDB, which is amounting to 700 crores. All this will be invested in the different infrastructural projects that are going on. We will be also upgrading the overall infrastructure in the rural areas through this project, which I mentioned about Southwest Khasi Hills, as well as in East Garo Hills. In Nokrek will be additional EAPs that we'll be taking up. So like that, sir, so on and so forth. There are multiple aspects that we are going into. We have created this very, very user-friendly app. We have now connected the different travel agents to these apps so that then the tourists will be able to easily register and connect to different programs and stays. So, for example, earlier the tourists used to struggle to figure out what they will do when they come here. So they used to just depend on the taxi driver or the hotel person telling them. But now we have actually taken the step to create a complete circuit for them, day-wise itinerary for them. And we have put this on the website. So tourists can actually click and choose and say that, we want to go for this program. So all this kind of integrated effort is going on to connect it. So there's no one answer to this, but it's a complete process. And this year is very crucial for us because a large number of these infrastructural projects will be implemented this year. Last year, we spent a lot of time in doing our homework and strengthening our different manpower here and overall increasing the investment flow into the sectors. So the EAPs were worked on, all these and so on and so forth. So it's a very broad reply. Since he asked me the question, I didn't have a choice. I had to go into all the details.
Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of reply for improvement of tourist. Anyway, so the impact of the stakeholders in the last 1 year, they have suffered a lot of homestays, and then small time youth, they have taken a loan and then to start their homestays, to start their ventures in this sector. And may I know from the government, what type of this relief has been provided by the government to these stakeholders? What type of this relief, sir?
Sir, of course, as I had mentioned in the primary reply, that there was no specific proposal to give a general relief to everybody. But then wherever possible, wherever government could do small things that would help the different stakeholders was done. For example, there are a large number of businesses that have taken government property on lease. So we realized that they could not recover this money. So we decided that we will waive off the 1 year's dues that they have to pay to the government for these properties. So that amounts to about almost 1.82 crores. So realizing that they would have difficulty, so at least these stakeholders who had taken the property from the tourism department, Directorate of Tourism, their annual fees was waived off, or the annual rent was waived off. Similarly, MTDC also waived off the fees that was the rent that had to be given by these private organizations who had taken government properties on lease, or the properties owned by MTDC on lease. So those also were waived off. At the same time, sir, directly, indirectly, a lot of these different stakeholders, hotels, were actually integrated into the fight against COVID. Now, a lot of people who used to, say, have shops and making food, so then they were engaged in providing food during COVID. A lot of the hotels were then converted into the COVID centers and, places for people to stay. So those bills also, a large amount has come up for that also, almost close to 20 crores was spent in these different hotels. So there was a base rate that was placed. So we have already cleared almost about 10.6 crores. We still have about 8.9 crores to be paid. But point is that these are ways in which we involved them during the COVID fight. And the benefit of that went to them. But this is the way we managed to support them. But yes, there was no specific program where we called all the stakeholders and decided to give any package to them, because it's a huge number and it's very complicated, and it would put a lot of burden on the government at that point in time. So we just tried to see where we could support, involve them in the COVID fight, and at the same time, wherever we could give them some relief by not asking them to pay the annual fees, we tried to do those. So those are the ways we tried to support the sector.
Last. So, looking at figures, 2613 reported up to March 4, the tourists in the Facilitation Center. So, may I know from the Chief Minister what happened to these names registered in the Facilitation Center? Whether these names are kept in the Facilitation Center or it is sent to the different departments? What happened to those names?
So the process is very simple. It's an online registration, which we do. And the people who do it in advance, they get a QR code, and it's simply scanned when they come at the facilitation center, and all the information comes out. In case they have not registered, so there are facilities out there to allow them to register and inform us. It's a basic registration where we ask for the name, we ask for where you're going to stay, what is the location, how many days, when you're going to go back. So all those registrations are done, and this is not on a register. Its name is registration, but it's online. Entire thing is on a cloud-based system, and it can be accessed by any department or the hotel as per the permissions given by the tourism department. So ultimately, we intend to incorporate and involve all the hotels also in this, so that the synchronization between the tourist registration done through this app and the registration done in the hotels will be synchronized. And we hope that finally we'll take it up to the level where even the police department and others will be given this information, because this is for the safety of all, and it's an information. And right now during the COVID time, it's very necessary that we have this information in case there is a situation where there could be some cases, and it will allow us to really trace and be able to contain the situation.
Yeah.
May I inquire from the Honourable Chief Minister whether the Meghalaya micro and medium enterprises schemes of 2020 will also cover for relief measures for all of these entrepreneurs running these facilities?
So that's a different question. So I don't have a specific reply to that right now, so I'll require notice.
So what about the livelihood and gainful employment scheme, the financial assistance? Will it also cover all of these questions asked at 76C?
So the general programs that we have had for the entrepreneurs, which is we opened up for different entrepreneurs, is available to all the entrepreneurs. So whether you're an agri-entrepreneur or a tourism entrepreneur, or any other sector that's there. So this will apply to all. So whoever has applied and whoever wants to apply for this is eligible to apply.
Yeah.
So in the course of response from the Honourable Minister, Honourable Chief Minister, that with the inflow of tourists day by day, especially now with the government coming up with different new tourist spots in different districts of the state, I would like to know the mind of the government with regards how to facilitate the economy in our state through different stakeholders, be it the vendor, be it the local taxi association, the tourist taxi association, as had been practiced in other states, like for example in Sikkim. Whether the government have any plan now or in future how to facilitate this local taxi association, so that those vehicles coming from outside the state, be it 1 day or 2 days, they will be stopped somewhere in Umling or Bernihan. Then the local taxi association will take them within the state, so that will boost the economy of our own local taxi association. At the same time, the vendors, the tourist guide. What is the mind of government on this?
So there are two parts to this question. First part is regarding what the government is doing now. So what we have done through this app that we have put into place, that we are incorporating even different kind of activities that you could take as a tourist. So for example, if you're coming in to Shillong, the booking of the payment of the ticket for the, say, Elephant Falls, that also is there in the app. So you can actually pay in advance for that. For the hotel booking also you can pay in advance for that. So there is a proposal that some part has been done, but we'll have to upgrade it further. So we will be incorporating other activities like, the tourist guide can also be booked through that. Then the taxis can be booked through that. Even restaurants can be booked through this. So it will become a one-stop shop for the tourist where he or she will be able to make all their bookings, including taxis, in advance. So that will ensure that there is a preference in a one way for our people out here who register with the system, and the local taxis obviously will see a benefit out of that. So that is a very, very important thing, and we are also engaging with the local taxi associations to ensure how we could connect them better with the tourists so that tourists will be able to very easily connect to them. Also, we are working on ways in which the taxi drivers' overall skills can be also upgraded. So a lot of our members and others also who have traveled in different locations will realize that taxi drivers in other countries and other states are actually even tourist guides. So half the experience of a tourist is actually through your driver who's driving you. How they should be courteous to the tourist, how they should be nice to the children, how they sometimes just bring chocolates to the children. These are small things that really affect you, but it's a major way of, it's small things you do, but it has a huge impact. So realizing that, we realize that the taxi drivers will play a very important role in creating the right image of the state's tourism in other parts of the country and to the other tourists. So we realize that importance, and we are working in, as I said, to ensure that the skills are upgraded from not just being a driver, but also being a friend and a tourist guide to the tourist to create the right impression for the tourism sector in our state. So the second part of the question which you mentioned was regarding the having an understanding where we allow the taxis from outside the state to stop somewhere and then the local taxis take over. Now, so this obviously is a suggestion which we have been really discussing and talking about. But we do realize that once we start doing that, then it might have the flip side effect also, where suddenly our taxi drivers who are going to drop people to, say, Guwahati airport will then be stopped at Umling and say, well, we'll take over from here. So there are some associations will say, well, now our Meghalaya taxis will stop in Umling, and there are some counterparts will take over. I don't know if that will be something that would be very nice, and it may just create a bit of a roughness also. At the same time, equally our drivers also will lose. So we have to realize that there is always a flip side to a suggestion like that. So we are examining, we are seeing if there is some way where we could give the preference, but without really letting our people and our taxi drivers also lose out. So really we would we would see Umling as a border where our taxis would not be able to then go to Assam and to drop the people to other parts of the northeast. So I think it's not something that we can give a definite answer to, but we are trying to figure out how, by minimizing the negative side, how we could at the same time give a slight preference to our taxi drivers. So we are looking at, as I said, connecting them directly with the tourist so that the booking is done straight away from Delhi or Bombay, and as soon as they land in the airport, already they have the name of their taxi driver. So those kind of connections are being done. And number two is the flights directly coming into Shillong will really make things much easier. And obviously, if it's Shillong flight, Umroi flight, then there is no question of any taxi drivers coming in from other parts. Then it will be only our people. So that's another reason why we are really pushing for more flights. It's not easy. It's not simple from logistics point of view also, nor is it easy from the financial point of view. But we see a much bigger gain by even spending and taking the trouble. But it will really boost the tourism sector. And so these kind of measures are being looked into.
Yeah, Bajaj.
So the facilitation center is an exercise that is an outcome of the MRSSA. So with the number of facilitation centers that have been informed that are going to be coming up in various parts of the state, now the registration has been done as part of the entire exercise of the MRSSA. But then in the due course of the reply of the Honourable Chief Minister, the police stations came at last of the submission, that the data will be shared with the local police stations after the entire exercise of hotels, cabs, and all the other facilities have been looked after. So what is the intent then of collecting the data and then not following up with the objective of the MRSSA for facilitating the visiting residents and the visiting tourists, and also bring in the safety and security measures that was the entire objective of the MRSSA, sir. So do we see the MRSSA being implemented, sir?
Sir, the question in fact is not in the right line, in the sense that the current registration that is taking place is from a COVID perspective. We are asking tourists to register in the tourism app and the tourism website to monitor the movement in case there is a situation where there is any kind of a COVID outbreak. It will be easy for us to trace and to contain the situation. So that is the purpose with which right now the tourism department is doing this monitoring and keeping the information. The MRSSA was amended to then allow the registration of tourists also to be there. But that, as you are aware, sir, that particular amendment has not been yet approved by the governor. So therefore, the registration of tourists based on the MRSSA Amendment Act is not in place right now. So this is being purely done right now from a COVID perspective, but it serves the purpose right now for us because it allows us to keep track on the movement and at the same time ensure that the COVID situation is contained and monitored. At the same time ensure that we are keeping the tourists safe also, at the same time our people safe also. So multiple aspects are being covered through this, but the primary objective of us doing this registration right now under the tourism app is to monitor for COVID and health purposes.
Thank you, sir.
Vacuum Fab.
Sir, looking at tourists from Assam, they never wanted a 2-day stay in Meghalaya. What they do is they come on Saturday morning, stay for the night, roam Sunday whole day, then evening they go back. So kindly review this 2-day stay so that the inflow will be more.
So we have already done it. It's 24 hours now.
Okay, thank you.